So don't hate me for this. You do not have to have poinsettia flowers on Christmas cards. Today we're going to be stretching our floral supplies and using them on Christmas cards. So where to start? I would recommend grabbing some supplies that you have in your stash, whether it be dies, stencils, stamps, whatever you've got, something that you think might work for a floral Christmas design. And I've got 5 ideas that I'm going to be sharing with you to stretch your stash. So let's begin with idea number 1. Use your stencils. So this is a layering stencil. It's a bouquet. It's going to be a really easy, simple card. It comes together in no time at all. And bonus points, it's a 1-layer design. Well, kind of. I usually work on an A2 panel and then I'll add it to a card base after, but if you prefer, you could always work directly on your card base. So any kind of floral bouquet can be potentially used for a Christmas design. To me, it kind of reminds me of those old antique Christmas cards that would have a bouquet on them. Often they'd have a nice dark background. So I could imagine this card as well, either done on a darker cardstock, or you could even stencil the bouquet, die cut it out or fussy cut it out, and then pop it up onto a dark background. Another way that you could make it look a little bit more Christmassy is to maybe add a splatter of white, or even a splatter of gold would look really pretty too. Now, I didn't like the green base leaf color, and one good thing about using stencils is they are very forgiving because you can easily line them up again. So you might notice that I did come in here and make that lightest sage green. Even though it's a really pretty color, it just wasn't doing it for me in this bouquet, so I could just come back in and re-ink that until I was happy. So next, let's talk about sentiments. I kept this card very clean and simple, and I know I'm teasing you. I'm showing you the most beautiful poinsettia flower here, but we're not going to use it. But we are going to use one of the sentiments from here. So how I like to choose my sentiment is literally just hold the stamp set over top of my design to see what it would look like. The other thing I can do is actually use a piece of acetate on top and temporarily stamp it and just have a look and move that around. That works really well too. Okay, idea number 2. This time we're going to be doing some tone on tone stamping. This is a great way to get more from your stamps and get a very different look. This is an older set here. I will link what I can if things are still available. If I can find something similar, I'll also link that. But you could do this with any floral stamp, even a small bouquet would work as well. I've grabbed a piece of pale green cardstock. I've got a slightly darker green ink color, and then I'm just moving the stamp about with this wheel. I could have just turned it 4 times, but I wanted to change it up and use a couple of different shapes out of the set for the flower, and that will just give you that tone on tone look, which you could just add directly to a carved front and use a nice big sentiment. That would look great. Even something glittery or gold would look really pretty. But I decided to make this card into a present. So I did do some shading with my ink blending tools. I created a tag for my present and added some ribbon, and I'm saying that in inverted commas because my ribbon is paper. And this bow is so pretty and much easier to tie than with real ribbon, I've got to say. I did add a sprig, so I used the same image that I'd used in the background, coloured it with some artist markers, and I layered all of these elements, the bow, the sprig and the tag sentiment in the centre of the card where the ribbon would meet. Next, I decided to do some ink smooshing, so add that watercolour effect to the background, and then you can add your floral elements on top. So I've smooshed the ink pads onto the glass, added a spray of clean water, and then I'm picking it up with some acetate and then dropping the colour directly onto my A2 card panel. Then you can add whatever elements you want. I decided to use these open leaves. They have the centre, and I wasn't sure initially if I was going to use the centre or not, but you could use whatever leaves you have. You could even stamp some leaves. But for the flowers, I decided to use partial images from another flower. So these are actually layers that you would normally put on another flower. So have a look at your stash and see what you've got, because if you've got some layering flower dies, you may well be able to use some of those layers to create their own flowers in their own right. So I added some color to these just with the ink blending tool, and I decided to add some shading to the leaves as well. But when I was doing the flowers, I did some extra ones because I wanted to create a little bit of dimension. I really like adding dimension to my cards. So for the leaves, I did cut a second die cut and layered that up. And then with the flowers, I layered those as well. So I like to use liquid glue when I've got really fine die cuts like this. It would have probably been easier to add images that weren't such fine die cuts, and they would look really pretty. With these smushed backgrounds, I decided to make mine look like it's sort of coming from the top of this card design, but you could get a similar look if you'd have a central sort of bouquet as well. And once that was all dry, then I could just cut away the excess cardstock from around the edge of the card design. And I like the uniqueness of this sort of floral design for a Christmas card. So we're on to the fourth idea now, and this one is a die cutting idea. We're going to be creating a wreath. And I have chosen one set that has a lot of different elements within it. So I've chosen the curved leaf to create the base of the wreath here, and it just wasn't going to fit on an A2 card. So I changed it up to make a 5-inch square side fold card. And this wreath fitted beautifully on there with the size of these leaves, but you could always make it smaller. I decided to use all the images from the same set because there was so many in the set. But if you don't have a die set like this, you could certainly use multiple dies of leaves and flowers from different sets to get a similar look. You certainly don't need a curved leaf to create a wreath. You can draw a circle on the front of your card and then just stick the die cuts around on that circle so you get the correct shape, and you can always keep adding and adding little bits. I cut some of these down until I was happy with the width of my wreath. I added some filler flowers. I wasn't sure whether to go with the yellow, and then I changed my mind and went with some of the pinks. I always cut extra, that way I've got choices when it comes to assembly. And if you don't have floral or leaf dies, but you have some stamps, you can either stamp and fussy cut them out to get a similar look, or you could even stamp and die cut them out if you've got a coordinating set. Which brings us to the final idea today, which is to frame it. We're going to be creating a floral frame on our Christmas card design. This is not a floral Christmas set by any means, so I was really trying to push the boundaries here and see if we could use just kind of any floral set and get away with it for Christmas cards, and I think it works. I'd like to know in the description below if you agree with me or not. But this set is so beautiful. I stamped it just with some pigment ink and did some really pale blending. One way that you can change up a regular floral set to make it look more Christmassy or holiday-y is to use traditional Christmas colours. So if you're going to do something with the greens and the reds, say, that's really going to work for me. Like if I was just using any floral image, I didn't want to go down that track today. I don't do many traditional coloured Christmas cards, but if you're not sure, that is a great way to make sure it's going to tick that holiday box. I did actually come back in and add some shading. I thought it was a little bit too pale. And when I die cut something like this, I actually die cut a couple of layers. I didn't show you that here, just because I'm going to pop it up. But obviously, if you don't want to add dimension to your card designs, you want them to be a bit more post friendly, then you don't need to do that step. So I did use a green base here because I thought that really did bring in a bit more of the Christmas theme, considering I was using the pink. But I think green and pink look really pretty for Christmas, and I also think this would look lovely done in, say, in the blue tones as well, just for something a bit different. So I added some dimension with foam tape. I just cut away, I flipped the card over to cut away the edges of the bouquet, and then I can use my leftover cutaway pieces to fill the gaps. And I have this A2 window to help me make sure that my design is the way that I want to be. If you don't have a die to cut out an A2 window like this, you can always just use a craft knife or a pair of scissors to cut a window out of a piece of heavyweight cardstock and use that to help you visualize as you're creating. Works a treat. And I am loving all the dimension on this card. And who says I don't use all my supplies? When I looked at the desk after I'd finished, I took this photo just for proof to share it with you. I had 3 pairs of scissors and 3 pairs of tweezers out. Seriously. And to prove that I am partial to a poinsettia, I'm going to link a video in the description below where poinsettias are the focus of the whole video. I'll see you there. So all together now, starting with the 1-layer stencil card. And next we did some tone-on-tone stamping to create a fun, easy background, and I made this card into a present. Then it was time for some ink smooshing to add a kind of watercolor effect to the die cut leaves and flowers. And for some serious dimension, I've got some die cut leaves and flowers. I am definitely hand gifting this card. And the final design was to frame it, and we created a floral frame for our last card. Let me know if you have a favorite card today, and if you enjoyed this video, please click on the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? It's totally free. I've got 2 more Christmas videos here for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, happy Christmas paper crafting. Bye.